All right. Welcome to another episode of Critical Wade Theory, or I might call it Movie Monster of the Moment, because this is sort of a show within a show, another one of those, and this would be episode number one. And this is sort of a focus on movie monsters, or whatever you want to call them, just mysterious uh, entities in movies that are considered monsters. They could be real movie monsters like, Godzilla would be a more obvious sort of movie monster. Or if I'm tackling a movie that's related to a human killer or something like that, it could obviously be less supernatural, more of a human killer. The I guess the Ted Bundy types. I might occasionally watch some serial killer movies because they are also movie monsters of a type, right? But this time we're going to be looking at a unique type of monster because it's debatable exactly what type of monster it is or if it's just purely symbolic. So I guess the opening question here is, what if your worst fears wore a face? Not a monster under the bed, but something weirder, something harder to name, something crying in the dark. In this case, literally crying in the dark. So today I'm talking about Eraserhead, David Lynch's 1977 debut feature, a film that doesn't explain itself. It just sits with you, crawls into your dreams, and leaves you asking, what was that thing? And if you've seen the movie, you might already be able to hear that weird staticky sound, maybe some buzzing, a faint baby crying, or maybe a really loud baby crying, because that thing gets pretty noisy in this movie. So let's start with the basics, though, kind of. Eraserhead is often described as surrealist horror or experimental, but honestly, those feel like academic safe words. It's more accurate to call it what, one online reviewer once did, Anxiety, the movie. I found that comment on Reddit, and sure enough, that, that definitely is what you could legitimately call this movie. Shot in black and white for stark contrast, written and directed by David Lynch, starring Jack Nance as Henry Spencer, a man with big hair and often dead looking eyes, wandering sometimes aimlessly through a crumbling industrial wasteland. You don't really know exactly what his role in the movie is, other than to be a sort of passive observer a lot of the time. And there's a lot of debate about what exactly he's observing and what he's actually doing in those moments where he does interact more directly with the world that is around him. So it is 89 minutes, so it's not a ridiculously long movie. The budget is maybe $10,000, though it took years to finish. And the plot, well, something happens, or maybe it doesn't. It's tricky to say exactly what is happening on the screen. I mean, what can you say? Henry's girlfriend gives birth to a thing, a baby, a creature, a living question mark, and when she leaves, Henry is stuck with it. The crying seemingly never stops. At times it's cackling at him, oddly, and honestly, I've laughed during that cackle. So it's almost like David Lynch knew that we would be joining in with this creature and finding humor in the humiliation of Henry Spencer. Reality starts slipping. Well, it almost never was reality. And things get weird and they get worse and they get pretty gross. So I guess the question here is, like, the main question, what is the baby? Let's talk about the monster, because let's be honest, it is let's honest. Oh boy, I may have just accidentally created a shorthand way of saying let's be honest. Let's honest. It is a monster. And that's one of the main tricks that this movie does is that you're you're kind of forced to see this thing as a monster, whatever it represents. It's the emotional core of the film and its greatest mystery, but it is definitely some sort of monster. We almost have no choice but to see it as such. It looks part lamb, part fetus. It has no eyebrows. It wheezes, it whines, it makes you uncomfortable just existing. David Lynch never revealed how he made the effect, so that secrecy only adds to the myth. Some say the baby represents the terror of fatherhood. Others say it's a metaphor for disability or guilt, maybe repressed trauma. Whatever it is, it's not human, but it feels human in the most awful and helpless way. And here's the thing, you don't need to know what the baby is actually. You already know what it feels like. That's Lynch's genius here. He bypasses logic and goes straight to your gut. Now, this movie does have haters, don't get me wrong. Maybe you're one of them. But I find it hard to hate this movie or have, the sort of opinion of it that just dismisses it. I think this movie just has too much to say for me to just casually brush it aside. So there are themes that you can't ignore, even if you can't totally understand them. A lot of critics try to solve Eraserhead, but that sort of misses the point, perhaps. Lynch himself has always resisted explaining it. From what I understand, he once said, "No one has ever come close," and he liked it that way. And still, there are themes that rise from the static here. The fear of fatherhood. Fear of fatherhood seems to be a rather obvious contender for the main theme here. The nightmare of not being ready, of not wanting it, of being stuck with it. And that emotional honesty runs through every frame of the movie. Even when the baby's not there, there's a sense that Henry doesn't want the life that he has. So that's kind of related to the baby, I suppose. Alienation is a theme. Henry lives in the city of smoke and noise. Everyone around him seems robotic, detached, like they're all playing pretend. And sexual repression is a theme here, too. There's tension in every kiss. Bodies are weird. Things are always messy. Something to be feared is around seemingly every interaction and every corner. There are some inexplicable things that happen in this movie, and it's almost like he's joking about the hidden dangers of life. And I suppose that is a pretty common theme in Lynch's movies as well. You can see that in Blue Velvet. I suppose even The Elephant Man has that to some extent because the main character there, he gets re-kidnapped, you might say. And there's a constant theme of that in a David Lynch movie that yes, you might be actually having a relatively normal experience, but something could be just around the corner and you don't always know exactly what it is. There's also industrial dehumanization. Everything feels mechanical, loud, overbearing. You can almost hear the factory in the background of every scene, even when you can't see it. Lighting is weird in the movie, and I don't just mean the lighting is done poorly or something like that. I actually think the lighting is done well in this movie, but I mean, light itself is a symbol as well as darkness. There's the look, the sound, and the madness that is Eraserhead. It doesn't look like a student film, even exactly. It looks like something that was excavated from a bad dream. Lynch shot it in gritty black and white, He designed the sets himself, from what I recall reading, placed light bulbs just so, obsessed over textures, shadows, and how faces warp on film. And at the same time, I've got the impression that he sort of naturally approached it. Like even though he comes across as meticulous and that sort of thing, it also seems to be like a natural thing that he had, where he just sort of easily did this stuff. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe he wasn't so casual in his approach, but it really seems like second nature to make a movie like this for somebody like David Lynch. And the sound design is unbelievable here. You got constant hums, machinery, screeching wind, and over a lot of that you end up with the baby crying. And then you got the lady in the radiator who sings in heaven everything is fine. And I guess that's like a lullaby, maybe it's a lie that actually ends up happening. And the fallout of this movie was pretty significant. It launched Lynch's career. Stanley Kubrick loved Eraserhead. He apparently screened it for the cast of The Shining to set the mood for that movie, I guess. Lynch went on to make The Elephant Man, Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, etc. But this is really where it all started, and it's still playing in midnight screenings, still being argued over in film schools. And if you haven't seen it, be warned, this isn't really a popcorn movie. Well, at least for most people would be. I could relax and enjoy popcorn to it, but I'm a special case, I guess you might say. It's like a transmission from the subconscious, a slow squirming meditation on dread. It's like a movie you survive, not just watch. And I would say that, if you watch this movie, you might want to watch it alone, but you might also not want to watch it alone. I guess it, you wouldn't want to bring a date with you to see this, probably, unless your date is really cool. Well, you know what? Maybe this would be the ultimate relationship test. If your if your date can tolerate this movie and thinks it's cool and stuff, that might be a keeper, actually. I don't know. Maybe that could actually be a relationship test for you. And there's a line from East of Eden that I sometimes quote here because it's so versatile. And I think it could be paired with the film Eraserhead too. When a man comes to die, if he dies unloved, his life must be a failure to him, and his dying a cold horror. So yeah, that seems to be a little bit relevant to Eraserhead. And I'll be using that quote on occasion in these episodes because it really is versatile. And Eraserhead is about that cold horror, about how life can feel mechanical, loveless, absurd, and yet it's about trying to find a way through it, to care for something grotesque, to hold it anyway. And maybe that's the monster, not the baby, but what the baby forces you to become, or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. So, yeah, thanks for listening. If you like weird, broken things that still feel true, stick around. I've got more monster related content coming soon. More movies. Maybe I'll branch off and do TV shows. I'm not sure. It's a little trickier to assess a TV show, but maybe I'll do that. I don't know. And hey, don't turn off the lights just yet.